Good evening, I'm Russ Mitchell. A worldwide search for the passengers and flight crew who may have been exposed to the most dangerous form of tuberculosis. We know more tonight about the man who has it and where he's been. Also tonight, a CBS News exclusive. Iraq's Prime Minister tells Lara Logan he has serious concerns now about a possible coup. Have surgery or wait it out? What the latest study says about treating back pain. And it looks like those two lost whales may have finally found their way home tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And Katie is on assignment tonight. The search is on this evening for anyone who may have been in contact with that Georgia man who has an especially dangerous form of tuberculosis. After being quarantined in Atlanta, his treatment is to continue in a Denver hospital that specializes in respiratory illnesses. The patient has what is called XDR-TB, that is shorthand for extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. The disease can be spread when an infected person coughs or sneezes, and the germs can stay in the air for several hours. That's why it is so important for anyone who might have been exposed to be tested. XDR-TB can be treated, but it is difficult. Experts say a cure is possible in only about 30% of cases. We have two reports tonight, beginning with Kelly Kobiea.
From a quarantined hospital room in Atlanta, the man with a deadly and dangerous form of tuberculosis told a newspaper reporter Tuesday why he chose to fly.
He says that health officials did not tell him to wear masks or isolate himself or do anything like that. And he says he doesn't believe he was putting people in jeopardy.
The tuberculosis bacteria was in his system, that much he knew, but he had no symptoms, no fever, weakness, coughing, or night sweats, and no idea that he had the most dangerous strain of TB until he was on his honeymoon in Rome. The man had already been on 3 flights, but rather than turning himself over to Italian health officials as the CDC requested, and with his name on a no-fly list, he boarded 2 more flights, from Rome to Prague and Prague to Montreal. He says he snuck back into the United States because he feared for his life.
He had been told that if he is mistreated early on in the process, it will significantly limit the options that are available to him.
Health officials in Georgia say he was told not to fly 2 days before he left the country.
We advised him that he should not travel because we did not have the legal jurisdiction to prohibit him from doing so.
The CDC is now on an international goose chase to track down about 80 passengers who sat within a few rows of the man on the 2 transatlantic flights. They still don't have all of the names.
This takes time, longer than we'd like.
The CDC says the risk of infection to other passengers is extremely low. The man still shows no symptoms and his wife is not infected. The U.S. government is now looking into how he was able to sneak back into the country after his name and passport were flagged. Kelly Kobiea, CBS News, Atlanta.
I'm Nancy Cordes in the emergency department at the prestigious Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, where they have 2 isolation rooms designed to hold infectious patients, like the man being treated in Atlanta.
The rooms are equipped to deal with any kind of patient.
Dr. Thomas Tallman points out the special features, separate ventilation systems, so a TB patient's coughing or sneezing, the way the disease is spread, won't send germs to other rooms. Video cameras so staff can monitor and talk to the patient without entering the room, and a door that locks from the outside, just in case. Extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, or XDR-TB, is rare in the U.S., just 2 cases last year, but worldwide it is on the rise. Cases have been reported in 37 nations, most of them industrialized, where drugs are available but sometimes used improperly, causing patients to develop a resistance, patients who could be just a plane flight away from the U.S.
Without being alarmist, it's important to be prepared. And in order to be prepared, you first have to have the appropriate medical facilities, which we don't have enough of.
He says there's no plan in place to handle patients like 27-year-old Robert Daniels from Russia, stricken with XDR-TB. A Phoenix court ordered he be locked in a special hospital room last July after he went out in public without a mask.
I'm looking in me, but the problem is that I can't even take a shower or can't even clip my nails.
Researchers are working on developing a new vaccine for tuberculosis. The current vaccine is considered ineffective and rarely used in the U.S. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Cleveland.
Turning overseas now, 7 NATO soldiers, including 5 Americans, were killed tonight when their helicopter went down in southern Afghanistan. The U.S. military says a CH-47 Chinook transport helicopter was apparently shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade. The Taliban say they did it, but that could not be verified. Now to Iraq, where a manhunt continues for 5 British civilians who were kidnapped yesterday from a government building in Baghdad. U.S. and Iraqi forces bashed in walls and stormed into homes in the Shiite enclave of Sadr City today, looking for them without any success. In the meantime, Iraq's prime minister says his government is at risk. In an exclusive interview, he tells our chief foreign correspondent, Lara Logan, he doesn't trust the men running his own army.
Handing over power to the Iraqi army is a big part of the latest U.S. effort to make Baghdad safer. But with so many officers who served under Saddam Hussein now filling the top ranks, Iraq's prime minister admitted in this exclusive interview with CBS News there's a real threat of a coup.
Do you feel confident that you have the loyalty of your officer corps?
There are some of them who are still loyal to the previous regime, and they are making problems. Sometimes they even violate the security of military operations.
Does that make you afraid for your own survival?
No, I'm not afraid, but I have to watch the army, because those still loyal to the previous regime may start planning coups. Those people don't believe in democracy, and for that reason we are monitoring the status of the army very carefully.
They're also monitoring violence in Baghdad, conscious of the fact that as attacks here continue and U.S. casualties soar, American patience with this government is wearing thin.
Your country is being run on an American political timetable. When you hear people in Washington telling you what you should be doing, how does that make you feel?
Actually, I don't accept that the Iraq government is being directed by anyone but its elected leaders. The Americans don't order us to do this or not to do that. On the contrary, we're the ones who tell them to do this and don't do that.
It's not just U.S. pressure the prime minister has to worry about. Iraqis, too, are increasingly frustrated, as we saw at this government conference in Baghdad today, where people came from all over the city to voice their complaints.
There's no jobs, of course, and even the workers, the people who work in buildings, sometimes they don't go to work because they are being captured either by the terrorists or militias.
Those fears persist in spite of the U.S. surge, and Prime Minister Maliki is all too aware that much more has to be done to satisfy his people that it's working. Lara Logan, CBS News, Baghdad.
At another international note, Russian President Vladimir Putin is coming to the U.S. The White House said today Putin and President Bush will meet July 1st and 2nd at the Bush family compound in Kennebunkport, Maine. There has been a lot of tough talk between the U.S. and Russia of late. Putin opposes American plans to put a missile shield over Europe, claiming it will turn the continent into a powder keg. In the presidential campaign, non-candidate Fred Thompson is taking a step toward becoming a candidate. Aides said today he is forming what they're calling a Testing the Waters Committee. He joins 10 other Republicans seeking the party's nomination. Thompson is 64 years old. He served 2 terms as a U.S. Senator from Tennessee and earlier was a lawyer on the Senate Watergate Committee. But he is best known for playing a lawyer on TV, the gruff DA on the program Law and Order. In health news tonight, some surprising news for people suffering from back pain. 8 out of 10 of us have had it at one time or another. Among the findings, the treatment you get may depend on where you live. For example, patients in Missoula, Montana are 20 times more likely to have surgery for one common back problem than those in Newark, New Jersey. So who needs surgery and who doesn't? Our medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook, has some answers.
Should I have some of that cookie?
Mary Cummings tried everything to relieve her back pain. Nothing worked.
I was starting to have pain radiating down my right leg.
It's the inflammation that causes the symptoms.
Dr. James Weinstein of the Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center diagnosed Mary with one of the most common back ailments for people over 55, spinal stenosis, or narrowing, which pinches nerves. One of Mary's vertebrae had also slipped forward over her spine. Dr. Weinstein is leading an ongoing study of treatment for back pain. Results out today in the New England Journal of Medicine show patients with Mary's condition did substantially better with surgery than with other treatments.
Patients who underwent surgery got relief within 6 to 12 weeks. Very rapid.
For me, it was absolutely the right decision and the only decision I could have made.
But Dr. Weinstein's previous research on another common back problem, the herniated disc, showed surgery is not necessarily better than other therapy. This is important information because spending on back surgery for Medicare patients alone has jumped 500% in the last decade.
The question we have to ask is, are we actually making those patients better? And is spending more money for all of these spine operations making a difference in our health of our country? I'm not convinced it is.
Results from Dr. Weinstein's third and final study of the best treatment for back problems will be released later this year. Dr. John LaPook, CBS News, New York.
This next story involves medicine as well, but it has people all over the world shaking their heads. This Friday, a new TV program will air in Europe that is essentially a game show about organ donation. It's being called a very harsh reality show. Richard Roth reports.
It's from the Dutch producers who invented Big Brother, but instead of 9 people locked in a house competing for money, there'll be just 3 contestants Friday night, and the winner's prize will be life. It's called Big Donor Show. 3 people with kidney disease will compete in primetime for a healthy kidney to be donated by a 37-year-old woman who's dying of cancer. She picks the winner after hearing their stories, but viewers will vote too by cell phone. Even the broadcaster admits the concept's offensive.
With this kind of tasteless, we know it's tasteless television show in which we're going to do this, we're trying to get a lot of attention for organ donorship.
Critics call that high-minded hypocrisy, and in Parliament, the TV lottery for a kidney transplant has been condemned as wretched and wrong.
It's certainly not something that should be left to an audience of 1 million people.
As reality TV, there's no question it breaks new ground. But the Dutch say it apparently breaks no law. Even so, even advocates for organ donor groups say a TV contest's the wrong way to help them.
What I would like to propose to BNN, the TV station, is you got the publicity you want and stop the program.
BNN says it won't do that. It was founded by this Dutch entertainer famous for rating stunts. He died of kidney failure 5 years ago, and the station says the program's a tribute, just as it answered controversy over programs featuring explicit sex and drug use by calling them educational. Richard Roth, CBS News, London.
There is more CBS News straight ahead, including why some schools say they may have to lower their standards because of a program that's supposed to raise them. Not the usual war of words in Washington today. This time, hundreds of kids took the stage at the National Spelling Bee. And the difference between the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat could come down to just one letter. The winner will be crowned tomorrow and walk away with prizes including $35,000 in cash and a $5,000 scholarship. Across the country, America's schools are being put to the test. In conjunction with Time magazine, our Kelly Wallace has a report card on the No Child Left Behind program.
If your paper looks like this, you are most on track.
Good grades always make teachers happy, and in Georgia, there were plenty of smiles after statewide testing of students.
The different types of media, excellent.
In 2005, on their state's reading test, 87% of fourth graders were rated proficient. But a national reading test tells a different story. Only 26% were rated proficient, a gap of 61 points. Were you alarmed by the gap?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think all of us in education were alarmed by the gap.
Donald Remillard is a local school superintendent outside Atlanta.
Our teachers were doing a pretty good job, and our test scores were pretty good, but then we didn't stack up as well nationally with other states.
Georgia is not alone. A number of states, including Mississippi, Tennessee, and Oklahoma, also score high on their state tests, but significantly lower on the National Assessment of Educational Progress exam. The problem, say experts, is the meaning of one word, proficiency. Each state can come up with its own definition. There is no national standard to measure proficiency. States devise their own tests and their own standards. And that has some states crying foul, accusing other states of lowering the bar to make their schools look more successful.
Good job.
For example, just across the border from Georgia is South Carolina. The two states score the same on that national test, but have very different results on their state tests. 36% of South Carolina fourth graders were rated proficient in reading. Remember, Georgia's was 87%.
We're operating with a very uneven playing field right now.
Local school superintendent Jim Ray says South Carolina's standards are tougher than Georgia's, and that could end up hurting his state. Schools face sanctions if they fail to meet proficiency levels required under No Child Left Behind.
We would like not to be put into a position of having to lower standards to compete. They should be put in the position of balancing the standards so that there is an even, fair evaluation of all 50 states.
I just don't think they're looking at what Georgia has done over the course of No Child Left Behind. We're actually raising expectations for our kids, not running away.
As Congress considers changes to the law, Georgia's Kathy Cox says she's already toughening requirements for proficiency and rolling out a new curriculum.
We don't want this gap. We think we are doing a good job of educating kids in Georgia, and we're not satisfied at all.
Experts say narrowing the gap will mean more students across the country are making the grade, and that will be a real reason to smile. Kelly Wallace, CBS News, Douglasville, Georgia.
Coming up next, Kimberly Dozier on the front lines of the battle to save wounded warriors. This week, correspondent Kimberly Dozier has been telling the story of her recovery from the horrifying injuries she suffered in a car bombing in Baghdad 1 year ago, a bombing that killed 2 CBS News colleagues. In all likelihood, Kimberly would have died as well were it not for the heroic efforts of medical teams from Baghdad to Bethesda. Tonight, she reports on the men and women who fight every day for their patients' lives.
You've heard plenty about these front lines.
Whatever feels comfortable at this point.
But not so much about this one.
How's this feeling?
And neither had I until I was a patient here.
Just relax, you're just waking up.
The long battle to put the injured back together.
Hello there.
You look
So,
amazing.
thank you.
Oh, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you when I'm standing up.
Yes.
I thought you were taller than me.
No, I'm pretty short.
At Bethesda's Naval Hospital, these are its unsung heroes.
How we doing? Are we at that spot yet?
It's Corman.
Is there any numbness when I touch here?
I know some people were asking for transfers off the floor or needing a break from seeing this all the time. How do you handle this?
When you have guys coming back to visit you after they've gotten better, or, ladies, it makes all the difference in the world, and you know that you're impacting somebody's life.
He's wounded! On the battlefield, they're the medics for the Marines.
Did you sleep good last night?
Here, they're the nursing aides who help an unending stream of patients fight the pain.
We feel back there. Any pain?
And sometimes the shame that comes from being trapped in a hospital bed for weeks or for good.
Corman are Marines' best friends.
And there's really nothing better just to see smiles on their faces, and when they come back and they remember you and they're like, you helped me through that really tough day. I appreciate it.
I know I did.
The hardest part about being a patient is how helpless you feel. Your corpsman becomes your lifeline at the end of a call bell.
Good.
That dedication is typical. Often, corpsmen are so focused on the patients,
Did PT come in and work with you today?
they forget to take care of themselves.
It's not like a call bell every now and then. It's from 6:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night.
You're not getting to bed till like 10, 11 o'clock, and then we're getting up at 5 to be here again. So the hours are long.
Their boss calls it compassion fatigue.
They work long hours. They often work longer than they should. And what I mean by that is they come back on their days off.
So he created daily 5-minute timeouts with a mental health professional for all the caregivers.
It looks very good.
To make sure that as long as they're fighting over there, they're ready to keep fighting over here.
You've been very, very helpful.
Kimberly Dozier, CBS News, at the Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland.
Up next, missing 2 humpback whales, last seen near the Golden Gate Bridge. Could the pair that captivated America finally be home free? And finally tonight, what could be an anticlimactic end to the saga of that wayward humpback whale and her calf. They may have made their way a full 90 miles from the fresh waters of the Sacramento River back into the safe salt waters of the Pacific. Sandra Hughes has the latest.
When rescue operations broke off last night, the mother humpback whale and her calf were achingly close to freedom, just 3 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge. At daylight,
been having our eyes peeled for Delta and Don. So far, no sign of the two humpback.
Right now, rescuers' best guess is that the mother whale and her calf made a quiet exit through the Golden Gate into the open ocean sometime overnight.
I think it's nice that they can slip out in the middle of the night and avoid the circus.
An 18-day circus that included everything from banging pipes to boat herding that will likely cost the taxpayers a pretty penny. California officials won't say how much yet, but along the way, marine experts use the sometimes urgent situation to their advantage, gathering whale data for study.
We would love to be able to see them one last time and say goodbye, but again, if they've made their way home, that's what counts.
And in the end, it seems Mother Nature, not the efforts of man, lured them home. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, San Francisco.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For Katie Couric, I'm Russ Mitchell in New York. Thanks for joining us. We'll leave you this evening on the whale watch at the Golden Gate Bridge. Good night.